Hello everybody and welcome to Tiger Tales The Mysterious Origins, an original story channel where you'll find original stories written and read to you by myself, Tiger. Today we're diving into a brand new storyline, The King's Guard of Exoria. This story takes place in the same universe as the Tales of Exoria, but this takes place in the medieval time period, so there'll be lots of knights, kings and dragons. This storyline also revolves around the Lost Dimension, just like all stories that revolve around this channel. So let's dive into our new storyline. The King's Guard of Exoria. Chapter 1. Let the battle commence. The land of Exoria was filled with magic, power, and life. The Lost Dimension had attempted to ruin the reign of humans. The kingdom of Exoria ruled with a gentle heart and an iron-fisted defense. The kingdom looked after the surrounding villages, so King Samuel had created the King's Guard, a group of special individuals suited and tasked with handling the daily threats of the Lost Dimension. The first member was Ignis, the princess's royal bodyguard, an 18-year-old who had the skills in parkour, though it did not have that name as of yet. He also had skills in hand-to-hand combat, sword combat, and an excellent with the shot of a bow and arrow, which was his favourite weapon of choice. He was a medium build with brown hair that was short and spiky. He wore very thin chainmail underneath his brown, beige and navy blue clothes. Ignis woke up and rolled over to see the princess laid next to him. "Hey, wake up. We did it again," Ignis muttered. "What, sleep together or have sex?" Princess asked. "Ain't gonna complain about the second one, am I?" "No, I meant sleeping. If I get spotted in your bed, the father will have my head." Ignis sighed. Maybe not your head. Your fingertip, maybe. "Ooh, he might cut off your tongue," the princess mocked. Ignis rolled his eyes as the princess chuckled. He climbed out of bed and got dressed. He then swung his bow over his shoulder, leaned down and kissed the princess. "I love you and be safe," the princess sighed. "Always. I love you too, your majesty." Ignis sighed. Then he opened the window and climbed out of it. He scaled down the wall, hopped off and landed on the grass. He then scurried away. Ignis ran through the kingdom. He hopped onto the market stalls and ran over the rooftops, as it was quicker than walking through the street. He landed on the ground and jumped through the open window of a stone house and rolled into the kitchen. "Ignis! Boy, use the door!" a woman barked. The second member of the King's Guard was Kara, a rather big-built woman, packed with muscle. Her hair was blonde and she wore it in a ponytail. She also wore short-armed armor. And she was a lost hunter, born and bred to hunt down the monsters that came from the Lost Dimension. She wielded a big twin-headed battle axe. She also had a blessed stone, which allowed her to temporarily coat any weapon in the white holy energy which the lost demons were weak against. "Sorry, Kara," Ignis muttered. "Yeah, boy, watch it," Kara chuckled. Kara pulled out a knife, sliced an apple in half, and chucked one half to Ignis. He caught it and took a bite. Then suddenly a young boy came running in. "Hey, Ignis, how's things?" the young boy asked. "Hey, Bay. Good, man. How's you?" Ignis asked. Bay was a 10-year-old boy, and Kara's son. He had short brown hair, and he just wore normal garments, and he was also a part of the King's Guard. "I'm okay, just itching for some action." Bay grinned. "Yeah, your dad told me once. Never go looking for a fight, 'cause you'll go in blind to the process of the fight," Ignis told the boy. "I have raised my son a bit better than that, Ignis," a man called out as he walked in. The man was Z. He was rather built with muscle, just like his wife, and covered in armor. He also wielded a two-handed greatsword which sat on his back. His body was covered in scars from the endless battle from the Lost Dimension army. His hair was so short it was almost bald. He had a battle horn slung over his shoulder which sat by his waist, which was gold and white. "What are you saying there, Z?" Ignis asked with a grin. "I'm saying maybe you need to think more. That is, if you have a brain," Z quipped. "I didn't realize I had 3 children," Kara barked. "Sorry, my love, I was just having some fun." Z sighed. He walked over to his wife and kissed her. "Can we go now? I don't want to miss the fight," Bay moaned. Yes, let's go." Z rushed. Everyone left the house and headed for the center of the kingdom. Everyone in the kingdom had gathered to watch the fight between the General Knight and the runner-up. Every 6 months there was a fight between the general and his second-in-command. If the second-in-command would win, then he would be promoted to general. But if the second-in-command had not changed, or did not want to participate, then a random knight in the ranks could take up the offer to fight their general. Ignis, Kara, Z, and Bay all joined the massive crowd that circled around the two knights. "Dad, do you think Pantrax could win?" Bay asked. "Boy, Pantrax has never lost a fight with a human knight. He's a solid rock. Of course I think he can win," Z replied. The knight, all dressed in silver and cerulean armor, was Pantrax, a member of the king's guard and the general to the kingdom's army. He had long, dark blonde hair, and his armor was the heaviest of the team. His shoulder pads were shaped in the shape of wolf heads. He wielded a sword and shield, and around his neck was a necklace made out of stone, carved in the shape of a wolf. With it, Pantrax could summon the spirit wolf pack. The Alpha was Pantrax's spirit guide. Pantrax was a gentle giant, but also a fierce leader. Pantrax walked into the middle of the circle and met his opponent, a knight who was wearing a helmet hiding his face, and he had a spike-ball flail and shield. "Are you ready to lose?" Pantrax burst out in laughter. "Let's get this over with," the knight replied. Both knights took several steps back, drew their weapons, and Pantrax's shield acted as his sword sheath. He withdrew his sword and took his fighting stance. He stood there ready as his opponent stood there swinging his flail. Z then walked forward and stepped in the middle of the circle. "I, Z, of the King's Guard, am the judge here, as the king is still travelling and the queen and princess have urgent matters to attend to. So I want a clean fight. No blows to the head, no powers, melee combat only. First one to give up loses," Z announced. Both Pantrax and the knight nodded. "Let battle commence!" Z yelled out, and the crowd started cheering and clapping as Z returned to his family, and Pantrax and the knight both advanced forward. Pantrax kept his circular shield raised so his torso and face were almost covered, only allowing his eyes free from the defense, so he could keep an eye on his opponent. He kept his sword up and extended from him. The knight swung his flail and swung it over his head, swinging it down, slamming it down hard, slamming into Pantrax's shield, making him stagger back. Then he swung the flail across the floor, trying to catch Pantrax's foot. He jumped up and dodged the attack. As he landed, he jabbed his sword out, but his opponent's shield caught the attack. Then he swung his sword and caught the knight's armor. He swung around and slammed the shield into the knight, knocking him off his feet. The knight quickly jumped up and growled at him. "I'm ending this now!" the knight roared. Then he spun around the flail, and the spike ball hit the ground repeatedly, causing sparks to erupt from the dirt. Pantrax covered his eyes to protect them, as Ignis and the others watched intently. "Something is wrong," Ignis sighed. "Your little lost sense tingling, huh?" Z asked. Ignis had the strange sense ability which was triggered whenever the lost dimension or its energy was being triggered or being used. "Yeah, it's not good," Ignis said, his eyes glued to the knight. Pantrax swung his sword and was countered by the knight's shield. Then suddenly his flail became encased in red lightning, and he smacked Pantrax hard, knocking him back, which also made him fall off his feet. Then the knight stood over Pantrax and raised his lightning-coated flail. He's going for him. "Ignis, do something!" Kara barked. "Already on it," Ignis said. Then he pulled his bow over his head, drew an arrow. He took a deep breath and aimed the arrow quickly. He then released the arrow, which flew and hit the knight in the underarm. The knight dropped his flail and the lightning vanished. Then Pantrax kicked out, knocking the knight off his feet. Z, Kara, Ignis, and Bay ran over. Z pulled Pantrax to his feet, and Kara kicked the knight, who rolled over onto his stomach, and then Kara knelt on the knight's back, pinning him to the ground. "Give me another reason to make you lose an arm," Kara barked. Pantrax turned to Ignis, and they linked arms. "Thank you, brother. A good shot as always," Pantrax said with a sigh. Always anyway. Always for you," Ignis replied. Several knights barged through the gasping crowd. Kara grabbed the knight and pulled him to his feet, keeping one arm pinned behind his back. Then she shoved him at the knights. "Put this stupid fool in the dungeons. I shall talk to him later," Kara ordered. "Yes, ma'am," the knight replied, grabbing the attacker and dragging him away. The crowd of people scattered and went back to their normal day-to-day activities, mumbling about the events that just occurred. As the members of the king's guard headed for the castle, they walked into the throne room and found the princess sat on a chair having her hair plaited. "Hello, guards. How are you today?" the princess asked with a smile. "Not good. Pantrax got hit with someone with powers," Bay explained. "Oh my god, Pantrax, are you okay?" the princess gasped. I am fine, my lady. But what concerns me is, this would have been a normal fight between two knights. I don't think that man was one of my knights, but they attacked me. Luckily, it was just me, and I was able to handle it. Pandrix sighed. Who was he? The princess asked. We do not know. We're actually going to ask your mother permission to talk to him, Kara stated. Oh, sweet Kara, my mother is very busy, but I give you my permission, and if mother wants to throw venom at anyone, it shall be me, the princess told them. Thank you, princess, Z nodded. Ignis suddenly turned his head in confusion. What's wrong, brother? Pantrax asked. Something's going on. Something bad, Ignis snapped. Everyone ran outside and found the kingdom covered in lost dimension demonic-like cats, large beasts with 6 legs covered in black and bright green fur. Ignis, stay with the princess. Everyone fan out. Get the civilians inside and take out the lost intruders, Z ordered. Yes, sir, Ignis nodded. Then he and the princess ran off deeper into the castle. Pantrax, Z, and Kara all drew their weapons, ready to defend the kingdom. This story is an original story, just like all the stories on this channel. Be sure you check out the other story on this channel, being the Tales of Quasia Book 1. Now, all the stories on this channel is an explanation to the mysteries. Specific people throughout my fan fictions called the mysteries, people in white, people collecting champions, and delving into universes maybe they shouldn't. The stories on this channel explain just that. Now, of course, on with the outro.
This podcast is a production of the Three Ranger Bros Studios, in association with Zio to Hero, the podcast.
Thank you very much for listening to this chapter. If you want to hear more fanfictions and storylines, I have plenty of other Tiger Tales channels that you guys should be checking out. I'm going to give you a list of all of them. There's Tiger Tales, the channel that started it all. There's Tiger Tales The Lost Stories, a channel dedicated to storylines with the first-person view. Tiger Tales Game Over, a channel dedicated to video game storylines. Tiger Tales X, official crossover fanfictions co-on this channel. Tiger Tales Mysterious Origins, all my original storylines coming from myself go on that one. Then you have Tiger Tales One-Offs, a Tiger Tales channel dedicated to one-off storylines that have no continuation. We've also now expanded to podcasts, so make sure you check out everywhere you can listen to your podcast, the Fiction Fighters podcast, where you'll find a storyline called The Fiction Fighters, where fiction is power. I want to use this moment to thank all my supporters and the partners of Tiger Tales. First off, make sure you check out Cosplay Dude 637. I'm going to give you a quick rundown of all the places you can find him and where you can listen to his fanfictions. First off, there's Power Rangers Universe 19, a podcast dedicated to Power Rangers and Kamen Rider storylines. You'll also find a few of my stories on there too. Then, you also got Sailor Moon E, a Sailor Moon dedicated podcast storyline. Then you have The Order. Cosplay Dude 637's original storyline goes on this podcast. Then you have the One Piece audio drama YouTube channel, a audio drama dedicated to One Piece. Then you have Nostalgia Time, a YouTube channel dedicated to all fanfictions and storylines that are meant to make you feel nostalgic. You also have Marvel Universe 19, where you'll find Marvel-related fanfictions. You can also find some of my storylines there too. Now, of course, me and Cosplay Dude 637 are part of a studio called the Three Ranger Bros Studios, so I'd like to mention the third member, Mark the Red Cornish Ranger, and his podcast, Nursery Comics, where he adapts comic books into audio dramas, and you can also find his original Power Ranger storylines there as well. A quick shout out to a few of my supporters. We have the If You Give a Dad a Podcast host, Jared. Make sure you check out his podcast. He interviews some amazing guests. The Zero to Hero podcast, the Bolt and Scholar podcasting, Billy and Jim, of course, have been there since the get-go. So make sure you check out the Zero to Hero podcast. Some of my stories wouldn't be here without the Author's Crown YouTube channel's host, A Crown, so make sure you check out the Author's Crown YouTube channel with his fanfictions there. Now, if you'd like to hear me interview content creators about their content, or geek about specific topics with a bunch of geeks, make sure you check out the Tiger Nexus podcast. My podcast can be found everywhere you can find your podcasts, and we have a great time. We usually upload on Mondays. Now, of course, make sure you check out the links down below. It'll lead you to some of my other channels. I game on YouTube, I do artwork on YouTube, and I like to talk about movies, TV shows, and comic books on YouTube. So make sure you go check out the other channels. A huge thank you to everyone watching. Hit that like button, subscribe if you're new, and of course hit that notification bell so you don't miss another chapter. Roar of passion, everybody, and I shall see you guys in the next one.
That before we can...
Don't touch my Pringles.